He humiliated his pregnant wife on live TV while a billionaire watched, ready to rewrite her fate. "I never wanted this baby, Ava. You trapped me." His words cut through millions of screens. The studio fell silent. Cameras caught every flicker of her heartbreak. Ava Sinclair, 6 months pregnant, sat frozen beneath the harsh lights, her hands instinctively shielding her belly. The host tried to end the call, but it was too late. The betrayal was live, raw and unforgettable. Gasps rippled through the audience. A few whispered her name, like an apology she would never hear. Ava blinked once. No tears, no screams, only the sound of her heartbeat pounding against the silence as her world shattered in front of strangers. Across Boston, billionaire Elijah Ward froze the screen. His jaw tightened. His eyes darkened. "Find her," he said quietly, "because sometimes the moment you're destroyed is the moment fate starts rebuilding you." Stay and see how her public ruin became the beginning of something greater. The studio doors slammed behind Ava, cutting off the noise but not the sting. Flashbulbs exploded in her face as reporters shouted questions she couldn't hear. She walked straight ahead, expression blank, heels striking the floor in rhythm with her heartbeat. Outside, cold night air hit her lungs. She reached her car, slipped inside, and locked the doors. Silence. Then her phone started buzzing. Texts from her gallery staff, news alerts, pity messages from strangers. The headlines already screamed her name. Ava started the engine and drove. No destination, no thought, just motion. Boston blurred past in streaks of neon and rain. At a red light, the baby kicked. She placed a trembling hand on her stomach. "It's okay, baby," she whispered. "We're still here. We'll be okay." For the first time that night, she let out a breath that wasn't held in pain, but in survival. The city kept moving around her, uncaring, while she drove through the chaos with quiet resolve. One breath, one heartbeat, 1 mile at a time. Across the river, Elijah Ward sat in his glass-walled office, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. He replayed the footage again. Not the scandal, but the moment Ava didn't break. Her silence was stronger than any speech he'd ever heard. "Grace under fire," he murmured, almost to himself. There was something about that composure, that strength wrapped in heartbreak. It wasn't performance. It was truth. Claire Benton, his longtime assistant, stepped into the office. "It's past midnight, sir." Elijah didn't look up. "Get me everything on Ava Sinclair, her work, her exhibitions, her background." Claire hesitated. "The curator from the interview?" "The one who didn't crumble when her world did," he replied. As the screen froze on Ava's face, Elijah leaned back, thoughtful. In her pain, he saw purpose. In her humiliation, he saw power waiting to be reclaimed. Some people built empires from profit. He built them from potential, and she had both. Ava's apartment felt smaller than ever. The emerald dress lay on the floor like a piece of someone else's life. She stepped out of her heels, out of the day, out of everything that had just ended. The shower hissed to life. Hot water stung her skin, washing away the layers of makeup, sweat, and pretense. She stared at the fogged mirror afterward, her reflection blurred and strange. "Who am I now?" she whispered. The woman staring back had no answer. For a moment, her throat tightened. Then, unexpectedly, a laugh slipped out. Sharp, bitter, almost freeing. "Maybe this is what freedom looks like," she said softly, touching her belly. She wrapped herself in a towel and sat on the edge of her bed. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was heavy, real, alive. Somewhere between exhaustion and defiance, Ava realized she wasn't broken. She was awake. Outside, the first light of dawn painted her window gold. A reminder that endings sometimes looked a lot like beginnings. Morning brought exhaustion, not peace. Ava brewed coffee she didn't drink and ignored the world's noise outside her phone. Then, amid the flood of headlines, one email stood out. From Ward Global Foundation. Subject, Invitation. Private Dinner, Elijah Ward. She knew the name. Everybody did. Billionaire, philanthropist, art patron. The message was brief. I'd like to discuss an opportunity. Dinner, your convenience. Ava read it twice, unsure if it was real or pity disguised as business. Her first instinct was to delete it, but curiosity lingered. Why her? Why now? She opened her calendar, stared at the blank space where her future should have been, and began typing a reply. Dinner is fine. When she hit send, something inside her shifted. Maybe this wasn't another trap. Maybe it was a door she hadn't expected to open. Outside, Boston hummed with morning life, unaware that one message had just changed Ava Sinclair's story again, this time by choice. The city skyline glittered as Ava stepped onto the rooftop terrace. Elijah Ward was already standing, tall and calm against the Boston night. He didn't offer pity, only respect. Ava Sinclair, he said softly, pulling out her chair. What happened to you was wrong, but that's not why I'm here. She studied him, measured, reserved, unreadable. Then why are you? He slid a folder across the table. Inside, a proposal, a salary 3 times her current one, and a title that didn't exist before tonight. I believe your work deserves more than recovery, he said. It deserves expansion. Ava traced the company seal with trembling fingers. This is more than I expected. Elijah smiled slightly. Sometimes opportunity knocks when everything else has fallen silent. The waiter poured water. Neither touched it. Between them sat possibility, and something unspoken that neither dared name yet. Ava closed the folder gently. I'll think about it, she said, her voice steady again. Do, Elijah replied, and when you're ready, build something the world won't forget. That night, she didn't sleep, but for the first time in months, it wasn't from pain. It was from wondering what hope might feel like. The next day, sunlight filled Elijah's office. Ava stood across from him, still uncertain. I read the proposal, she said. It's ambitious. It's necessary, he replied. Our foundation is launching a national cultural initiative, reviving forgotten art spaces across the country. I want you to lead it. She blinked. Lead it? After everything that's happened? Elijah's eyes held hers. Especially after everything. You understand loss. You understand voice. That's what this project needs. Ava hesitated, heart racing. Why me? Because you didn't let humiliation define you, he said simply. You turned silence into strength. For a moment, neither spoke. Only the soft hum of the city below filled the air. You'd have full, creative control, Elijah added. Your vision, your people, your way. Her breath caught. The offer wasn't just a job, it was restoration. Proof that her name still meant something. I'll do it, she said quietly. And in that single sentence, Ava Sinclair stopped surviving and started rebuilding. Weeks turned into momentum. Ava's office buzzed with life, designers, curators, community leaders all orbiting her quiet authority. Headlines began to shift. Ava Sinclair rises again. Photos showed her standing beside Elijah at press events, confidence replacing the pain once etched into her face. But when the cameras disappeared, she still moved gently, hand brushing her stomach as she worked late into the night. We're doing this together, she whispered to her unborn daughter. Every new exhibit, every community outreach became a promise, to herself and to the life she carried. At night, she'd return home exhausted, but alive. The nursery walls glowed soft pink under a single lamp. She'd pause at the door, smiling faintly. This is our fresh start, she'd murmur, our second chance. And, for the first time in a long while, Ava believed it. The world that once tore her down was now watching her rebuild, step by step. She wasn't just curating art anymore, she was curating her comeback. Elijah never blurred boundaries. There were no late-night calls, no misplaced touches, only quiet presence. He scheduled meetings around her doctor appointments, rearranged deadlines without making it obvious. Every gesture was subtle, intentional. Claire Benton, his assistant, noticed before anyone else. "He's different around her," she said one afternoon, handing Ava a project file. Ava looked up, smiling politely. "Different how?" Claire hesitated. "Less guarded, more human." Later, during a conference review, Elijah listened to Ava speak about art as healing. His gaze lingered, not with desire, but admiration. "You've changed the way my team sees this work," he said afterward. "No," Ava replied softly. "You gave me the chance to." When she left the room, Elijah watched her go with a look no one could quite name. Respect, affection, maybe both. What began as a partnership rooted in purpose was quietly evolving into something deeper, an understanding that didn't need words. And for Ava, that quiet respect meant more than any confession could. It happened on a quiet Sunday night. Ava sat reviewing exhibition proposals when a sharp pain cut through her. Her water broke, soaking the floor. Panic flickered, but training took over. She called 911, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Between contractions, she texted Elijah. "In labor. Heading to Mercy General. Don't worry, I'll be fine." His reply came instantly. "I'm on my way." Minutes later, headlights flashed outside her building. Elijah reached her before the ambulance did, breath uneven, tie gone. "You don't have to," she began, wincing. "I know," he said simply. "But I'm here." When the paramedics arrived, Elijah stayed at her side, helping her into the stretcher, never letting go of her hand. In that chaos, sirens, pain, fear, Ava felt something steady in him. Not romance, not yet, just safety. As the ambulance pulled away, he whispered, "You're not alone anymore." And for the first time, she believed him. Hours blurred into waves of pain and light. Ava clutched Elijah's hand through every contraction, her breath ragged but determined. He said little, only quiet encouragement when she faltered. His stillness grounded her. "One more push," the doctor said. The room tightened around those 3 words. Ava cried out, gave everything she had left, and then the sound came, a piercing, miraculous cry. Ava fell back, shaking with exhaustion and awe. The nurse placed the tiny, wailing baby on her chest. Tears welled up instantly. "Hi, Grace," she whispered, voice breaking. "Hi, my sweet girl." Elijah stepped back, swallowing hard. His eyes shimmered, his composure cracking for the first time. Ava looked up at him, smiling through tears. "Do you want to meet her?" she asked. He froze. "Are you sure?" Ava nodded. Elijah approached slowly, reverently. Grace's tiny fingers curled around his breath hitched. In that single touch, something deep and wordless passed between them. Connection, devotion, awe. He whispered, "Welcome to the world, little one." And for the first time in years, both of them felt whole. The hospital room grew quiet after the rush. Machines hummed softly in the dark. Ava drifted in and out of sleep, waking once to see Elijah still there, jacket off, tie undone, asleep in a chair beside her bed. The nurses whispered near the door. "Is that her husband?" "No," another said softly, "just her friend." Ava turned her head toward him. Even in sleep, his expression was gentle, protective. He didn't have to stay. He could have left after the birth, sent flowers, sent someone else, but he didn't. He stayed. When Grace stirred in her bassinet, Elijah was instantly awake, moving to check on her before Ava even spoke. His care wasn't loud or grand. It was steady, quiet, certain. Ava watched him, heart tightening with something she couldn't yet name. Gratitude, admiration, maybe more. As dawn crept through the blinds, Elijah looked up and smiled faintly. "She's got your strength," he said. "No," Ava whispered. "She's got yours." Weeks melted into new rhythms. Feedings, midnight cries, whispered lullabies. Grace grew strong, her tiny fingers curling around Ava's every morning. One afternoon, a package arrived at Ava's door. Inside was a sleek white bassinet with a note, "For your office, when you're ready. E.W." Ava traced the handwriting, smiling. She placed it beside her desk, imagining the day she'd bring Grace to work. The world began to change its tune. Headlines that once screamed betrayal now read, "Ava Sinclair rises again." Her exhibitions drew record crowds. Her leadership inspired young artists across the country. Through it all, Elijah stayed in the background, never taking credit, never demanding attention. But when Ava caught her reflection in gallery windows or glowing magazine covers, she didn't see scandal anymore. She saw survival. Every success, every applause, was a step away from shame and toward strength. At night, holding Grace against her chest, she whispered, "We did it, baby. We really did." In the months that followed, quiet affection wove itself through the fabric of their days. Elijah attended meetings, calm as always, but now his desk held a photo of Ava's first exhibition after her comeback. Claire teased him one afternoon, setting down reports. "You've started researching infant sleep cycles now?" He gave a faint, embarrassed shrug. "Just trying to understand her experience." Claire smirked. "Whose experience? The baby's or Ava's?" He didn't answer. Later that day, Ava overheard the exchange while passing by. She smiled softly to herself, but said nothing. That evening, Elijah stopped by her office with documents, his usual calm in place. But when he noticed Grace asleep in her bassinet, something in his face softened. Pure, unguarded warmth. Ava caught his look. Their eyes met. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. In that quiet exchange, something gentle and dangerous began to grow, something that didn't yet ask for a name. It happened on an ordinary afternoon. Ava sat on the floor, sorting paperwork while Grace played nearby. Grace looked up suddenly, eyes bright, and reached her tiny hands toward Elijah, who had just stepped in. "Dada," she said clearly. Time froze. Ava's breath caught. "She's just babbling," she said quickly, her voice a little too sharp. Elijah's face went pale. "It doesn't mean anything," he murmured, but both of them trembled. Grace giggled, oblivious, repeating the sound again, "Dada!" before collapsing into delighted laughter. Elijah knelt slowly, his hand hovering near her but not touching. "Hey, little one," he whispered, his voice shaking. Ava watched him, torn between gratitude and fear. This was what love looked like, quiet, real, and terrifying. Neither spoke again, but both knew. Something had changed forever. That night, after Grace had fallen asleep, the apartment was quiet except for the hum of the city outside. Ava sat across from Elijah, tea cooling between them. "I need to say something," she began softly, "and I don't want you to misunderstand it." Elijah watched her, patient. "I think I've fallen for you," she said, voice trembling but sure. "Not because you saved me, but because you never tried to. You just stood beside me until I could save myself." For a long moment, he didn't speak. His jaw tightened, breath uneven. Then, finally, his restraint broke. "I've loved you since the beginning," he said quietly, "since the night I saw you hold your dignity when the world tried to take it." Tears filled her eyes, not from pain this time, but release. They didn't rush into each other's arms. They didn't need to. Just sat there, in the quiet certainty that what had been building between them had finally been spoken aloud. Outside, the city moved on, but for Ava, time stopped long enough to feel something she thought she'd never feel again: hope. Days turned into weeks, and their confession didn't change the rhythm of their lives. It deepened it. They agreed to keep it private. No declarations, no public affection. Just quiet understanding shared through glances, through presence. Their love grew in the spaces between deadlines and lullabies, between meetings and bedtime stories. "Let time prove it," Elijah said one night, tucking a blanket over Grace as she slept. "Real things don't need to be announced." Ava smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "Then let's build something real." They moved like a family, long before anyone called them one. Morning coffee shared in silence, weekends at the park, late nights planning exhibitions side by side. Theirs wasn't a fairy tale. It was steadier, truer, two people who'd earned peace after surviving storms. And every time Grace called out Dada, Ava's heart stopped, not from fear anymore, but from gratitude that love could come from such unlikely places. The gallery buzzed with chatter, champagne, and flashing cameras. Ava stood before her newest installation, art born from healing. For the first time, she felt completely seen. Then, a security guard leaned in, voice low. "Ms. Sinclair, Ryan Caldwell is here." Her blood went cold. Across the room, he stood near the entrance, immaculate suit, easy smile, the same arrogance that once broke her. He approached slowly, enjoying the tension he caused. "Ava," he greeted, voice smooth. "We need to talk." She steadied herself. "There's nothing to say." "Oh, I think there is," he said, smirking. "About our daughter." Every eye seemed to turn toward them, though no one could hear. Ava's pulse roared in her ears. Elijah noticed from across the gallery and started walking toward her, calm but purposeful. Ryan's smile faltered when he saw him. "Ah, the billionaire," he sneered. "Playing family now?" Ava's voice was steady when she said, "Leave, Ryan. Whatever you're after, it's not here." But deep down, she knew. The past wasn't done with her yet. The next morning, Ryan showed up at her office, flanked by lawyers. "I'm filing for custody," he announced coldly. "She's my daughter, Ava." Elijah stood beside her, silent but firm. "You made your choice on national television," he said. "Remember?" Ryan's jaw tightened. "That was a mistake." "No," Ava said, her voice steel. "It was the only honest thing you ever said." He threw a stack of papers onto her desk. "Petition for paternity testing and joint custody." Ava's breath caught. "You're doing this now? After 2 years?" Ryan smiled thinly. "People change, and billionaires make things interesting." Elijah stepped forward. "You're not taking her. You had your chance. You threw it away." Ryan leaned close, eyes cold. "You can't buy fatherhood, Ward." "No," Elijah said, "but I can earn it." The tension crackled between them. Ryan walked out, leaving silence thick as smoke. Ava turned to Elijah, trembling. "He'll drag us through court." Elijah met her eyes. "Then we'll fight, with truth, not fear." By morning, the news broke. Ryan Caldwell files for custody of daughter he once rejected on live TV. Within hours, social media exploded. "Where were you, Ryan?" trended worldwide. Thousands of women shared their stories of abandonment and resilience. "He said he never wanted that baby," one post read. "Now he wants her because she's loved by someone else." Morning shows replayed the old clip, his cold confession, her silent heartbreak. Viewers reacted with outrage, flooding networks with messages of support for Ava. Elijah watched the chaos unfold from his office, phone lighting up with messages from journalists and donors. "Public opinion is on your side," Claire told him. "I don't want sympathy," he said. "I want justice." Ava sat at home, holding Grace as the headlines scrolled by. She wasn't hiding this time. When a reporter called for a statement, she answered calmly, "The world saw him reject us once. Now, they'll see what real fatherhood looks like." And just like that, Ava Sinclair stopped being the victim of a scandal and became the face of every woman who refused to be silenced. The studio lights felt familiar, but this time Ava wasn't trembling. She sat tall, calm, and certain. Across from her, the host began softly, "Ava, why speak now?" Ava's hands rested in her lap. "Because silence once protected him," she said, "and I won't let it protect him again." The audience was silent. "He rejected his child. I just kept showing up." Her voice didn't shake, it carried. "Parenthood isn't a title, it's a choice you make every day." Elijah sat beside her, quiet but unmovable. His presence said everything words couldn't. Footage of that old humiliation played on the screen behind them, the moment Ryan turned his back on her and the unborn baby. The host's voice lowered. Do you forgive him? Ava paused. I don't need to. My daughter's life is proof that we survived him. The interview ended in thunderous applause. Cameras flashed, but this time Ava didn't flinch. Outside, Elijah took her hand. You did what you had to, he said. No, Ava replied. I did what every mother should. And for the first time the world saw her not as a victim, but as a voice. The next morning, a short clip from the interview went viral. Not Ava's words, but the ending. A behind-the-scenes moment caught by a studio camera. Grace running into Elijah's arms after the interview, giggling as she called out, Dada! He lifted her effortlessly, eyes softening as she nestled against his chest. The image spread everywhere. Millions watched. Millions cried. That's her real father, one viewer wrote. Blood doesn't make a man a dad, said another. My stepdad raised me. I felt this, another posted. Across the world, comments poured in, stories of stepfathers, adoptive parents, uncles, mentors, people who showed up when others didn't. By nightfall, hashtags trended again, #RealFatherhood and #TeamAva. Elijah saw it all from his office but said nothing. He didn't need the validation. He looked at the photo of Grace on his desk, smiling through tears. She was his, not by birth, by choice. The courtroom was full. Press, cameras, strangers waiting to witness judgment. Judge Williams called the session to order. Ava sat with her lawyer, calm but pale. Elijah's hand rested lightly on hers beneath the table. Ryan sat across the aisle, perfectly tailored, perfectly cold. Ava's attorney began, voice clear. Fatherhood is action, not DNA. Mr. Caldwell's biology doesn't make him a father. His absence proves it. The judge nodded slightly, eyes steady. Ryan's lawyer countered, painting him as a man seeking redemption. He made mistakes, but deserves a second chance. Ava's gaze never wavered. When Elijah was called to testify, his tone stayed even. I've been there for every moment. The first breath, the first steps, the first word. She knows me because I never left. Ryan shifted in his seat, jaw clenched. The judge watched them both in silence. In that stillness, Ava understood. Truth didn't need shouting. It simply needed to stand tall long enough to be seen. And that's exactly what they were doing. The testimonies came one after another, a wave of quiet truth too strong to deny. The pediatrician took the stand first. I've never met Mr. Caldwell, she said, but Mr. Ward has attended every appointment. Next, Grace's daycare director. When she falls, she calls for him. That's not a coincidence. That's bond. Ava's assistant spoke through tears. He's the kind of father who leaves meetings with senators to read bedtime stories over FaceTime. Each witness chipped away at Ryan's facade. The cameras captured every twitch of his jaw, every flicker of guilt he tried to suppress. By the time the last employee testified, he celebrates every milestone like it's his own. Ryan's shoulders sagged. He looked smaller somehow, as if the truth had finally weighed him down. Ava didn't gloat. She simply held Elijah's hand, their fingers intertwined. Proof of everything the courtroom was finally starting to understand. Fatherhood wasn't claimed in a courtroom. It was earned in moments no one saw. When Judge Williams returned to the bench, the air turned still. Cameras clicked once, then stopped. I've reviewed the evidence, she began. Mr. Caldwell, you abandoned this child before she took her first breath. You've made no effort to support or know her since. Your petition for custody is denied. Ryan's head snapped up, disbelief flooding his face. Furthermore, the judge continued, voice firm but kind, your parental rights are terminated, on grounds of abandonment and the child's best interests. Ava gasped softly. Elijah squeezed her hand. Mr. Ward, the judge said, turning to him, your petition for adoption is granted. From this day forward, Grace Ward is your legal daughter. The courtroom erupted in muffled applause and tears. Elijah's composure finally broke. He pulled Ava into his arms, whispering, "She's ours." Outside, reporters shouted questions, but he ignored them. When they reached their car, Ava smiled through tears. "We did it." Elijah looked at her, eyes shining. "No," he said softly. "We became what we were meant to be, a family." Outside the courthouse, the air was cool and bright. Reporters swarmed, microphones thrust forward, cameras flashing in every direction. Questions flew. "Ava, how do you feel?" "Elijah, what's next for your family?" But Elijah didn't pause. He wrapped his arm around Ava's shoulders, drawing her close. Grace clung to his other hand, her tiny steps matching his calm stride. He stopped once, turned toward the cameras, and said only one thing. "We're taking our daughter home. No more statements, no victory speeches, just truth. Simple, final, complete." The noise of the crowd faded behind them as they reached the car. Inside, Ava exhaled, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. "She's safe," she whispered. "She always was," Elijah replied softly. "Now the world just knows it too." Grace babbled from the back seat, unaware of the history written that day. Ava looked at Elijah, her eyes full of gratitude, and smiled through the tears. For the first time, there was no fear left between them. Only peace, and the quiet joy of a family finally whole. Months later, life had found its rhythm again. Work, laughter, Grace's endless energy filling every room. That evening, dinner waited beneath soft lights. Ava arrived home to find the table set, music low, and Elijah in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, smile warm. "A special occasion?" she teased. "Maybe," he said, voice lighter than usual. Just as she sat, Grace toddled in wearing a blue dress, clutching a small velvet box. "For Mama," she announced proudly. Ava laughed, confused, until Elijah knelt beside their daughter. "Grace helped me pick it," he said, opening the box to reveal an emerald ring, the same green as the dress Ava wore the day her life fell apart. "Ava Sinclair," he said quietly. "Will you let me spend forever showing up for you, and for her?" Tears blurred her vision. She nodded, laughing through them. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes." Grace clapped her hands. "Dada, marry Mama." And just like that, the woman who had once been broken on live television said yes to a future she never dared imagine. Spring sunlight spilled across the sculpture garden at the Sinclair Atelier, the very place where Ava rebuilt her life. Friends and colleagues gathered among the installations, the scent of flowers mingling with fresh paint and laughter. Grace, now 3, scattered petals down the aisle with solemn precision, before sprinting into Elijah's waiting arms. When Ava appeared, the crowd fell silent. She wore a simple ivory gown, her smile radiant, her eyes glistening. "You taught us family is built, not born," whispered one guest, echoing what everyone felt. Elijah's vows were quiet, sincere. "I promise to keep showing up, every day, for both of you." Ava's voice trembled only once. "You turned the worst day of my life into the beginning of my best one." Grace giggled as they kissed, the audience erupting in gentle applause. The ceremony was small, but every tear, every smile, carried the weight of everything they'd endured. They hadn't just found love, they'd built it, piece by piece, from the ruins. Years passed in quiet beauty. The house on the hill was always full, of color, laughter, and the smell of paint. Grace, now 7, painted beside her baby brother Miles, both smeared with more color than the canvas itself. Ava watched from across the room, amusement softening her features. Elijah stirred something on the stove, glancing over his shoulder. "Can you believe this life?" Ava smiled, brushing her hands against his arm. "Not for a second, but I'm grateful for every bit of it." Their life wasn't glamorous, just ordinary in the most extraordinary way. Morning pancakes, bedtime stories, art projects gone wrong. The world still remembered her as the woman who had once been humiliated on live television. But inside these walls, she was simply Ava. Mother, wife, artist, whole. Sometimes, after the kids were asleep, she'd look out the window and whisper, "We made it." And every time Elijah would answer softly, "Together." He humiliated her on live TV, but she rose higher than ever. Because family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, day after day. Ava's story became more than a headline. It became a lesson in grace, resilience, and the quiet power of love that doesn't quit. Somewhere, someone still watches that first broadcast, the moment of her public collapse, and never sees what came after. The strength, the rebuilding, the found family that turned pain into purpose. But you've seen it now, because behind every humiliation lies a choice, to surrender or to rise. And Ava Sinclair rose. If this story touched your heart, share it. Remind someone that dignity, love, and showing up still matter. Because love always finds those who keep their dignity and never stop believing they deserve more.